The XRP token reached its highest level of dread since the month of October, a time period in which a similar feeling preceded a rally of 22%. This pattern indicates that there is yet another opportunity to purchase XRP based on its current attitude. A warm welcome back to the XRP holders on the channel. I want to extend my gratitude to every one of you for the affection that you demonstrate to one another every single day. When taking into account the 24-hour period, there was a slight pullback yesterday for the broader market, which we did observe. As far as the overall market is concerned, you are seeing a retracement that is somewhere between 3 and 5%, which you can observe for yourself. As for the additional P, it has decreased by approximately 4.2%, which we were able to observe firsthand over the course of the previous hour. However, we have noticed a slight rebound as we approach Friday morning, but we will have to wait and see what occurs as we continue to go forward into Friday. However, in terms of the price of the additional P, it is $2.10. When it comes to the Bitcoin market, this is a decrease of 3%. The valuation is currently at $125.8 billion, and the volume of trade over the past 24 hours is at $3.3 billion. As I have stated in the past, please keep in mind that any information provided on this channel is not to be construed as financial advice. When you are putting your money into cryptocurrency, you should always conduct your own investigation and research. As a result, I would like all of you to consider this right away. Therefore, when you are considering the overall market, there is no mystery as to the fact that the market sentiment is really poor. And, as you are aware, the additional P at these levels truly demonstrates just how negative the attitude is. However, when you examine the cost, we are referring to the sentiment being low, while the price range remains at this $2 price point. Once more, I must say that I find this to be extremely fascinating because, in the present, the general feeling of the market is not particularly positive. It is the case that a significant number of alternative cryptocurrencies are not receiving the levels of bids that would normally be expected. It is evident that it dates back to the beginning of the year and even to the middle of the year when we observed that altcoins were seeing a slight increase in value. However, we have not really witnessed that retail bid coming into play since that time, as you are aware. And as a result of this, you are able to gain a slightly more accurate sense of how low the overall interest rate is at this time for cryptocurrency. However, from the perspective of XRP, the sentiment is quite negative, but the price of XRP is still within the 0.50 fib zone. Allow yourself to absorb it, and you will come to the realization that this is something that a great number of people fail to recognize, which is precisely the point I make in every single update. We ought to stop disregarding it. We are going to revisit the price later on, but that is all for now. Let us keep observing what is taking place. Therefore, let me remind everyone to give a shout out to Anders. The following is a representation of Ripple's one-stop store. Following the closure of the G Treasury acquisition, this is a huge day. As you can observe, a G Treasury is connected to 13,000 banks, which results in an annual volume of $12.5 trillion. It is worth keeping in mind that Ripple has submitted an application for a Federal Reserve master account and that it is still awaiting approval for its bank license. To be completely honest with you, Ripple is constructing a financial institution and a financial system for the next generation. It is at the point when you start to see a larger image coming into view that you consider the situation from this particular point of view and all of the many acquisitions that they have made. Once again, I want to give a thank out to Anders. I believe that Anders is the one who put this image together because this makes it easier for you to comprehend what we are currently examining. I have already addressed this issue in the most recent update to my market analysis, which I would like to point out. In the event that you did wind up watching it, but if you did not, there is no need to worry. Spot crypto is now able to trade on exchanges that are registered with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, which has been considered the gold standard for almost a century. This is a first in the history of spot crypto. Basically, in my opinion, clears the way for every big brokerage to provide cryptocurrency trading and to feel confident from a regulatory standpoint. Have a discussion regarding, as you are aware, the regulatory perspective and clarity on every day of the week. Even before to the year 2025, we had been discussing the topic for an extended period of time. In my opinion, the year 2025 does not receive the recognition it is due because, as you are aware, the quantity of interest that has flowed into the cryptocurrency sector, not only from the institutional perspective but also from a regulatory perspective, is nothing short of revolutionary. Due to the fact that there was no clarity or regulation surrounding the cryptocurrency industry, all of these institutions and hedge funds, pensions, and so on were previously excluded from the cryptocurrency market. However, You are beginning to observe that those individuals who were before sidelined and these major organizations are now beginning to make their presence known. And the year 2026 appears to be very promising. The phrase that you hear all the time is, a 4-year cycle is no longer in play, as you are well aware. I would want to attempt to explain what the term 4-year cycle truly implies, as I believe that it is constantly misunderstood. Therefore, from the perspective of a halvening, it is necessary to consider the 4-year cycle. You are aware that the Bitcoin halvening begins in the first year, and it is during the second year that Bitcoin reaches its peak, correct? As a result, the beginning of the bull market coincides with the first year's occurrence of the halving. It reaches a point when it kind of levels off in the second year. The bear market really began in the third year, but it was quite choppy. And after that, the fourth year is when accumulation takes place, when accumulation is occurring in its entirety. After then, you enter into the halving year once more. Therefore, from a historical perspective, the reason why 2026 is the year that everyone is talking about is that next year is considered to be historically significant in relation to this cycle. The halving that occurred in 2024 is clearly a factor that I am taking into consideration. It is already the year 2025 and we are at the very end of it. Therefore, a bear market is expected to occur in 2026. However, considering everything that is happening right now, if Bitcoin is able to push towards new highs, it would be an indication that, this is no longer in play. One thing that a lot of people overlook is the 4-year cycle that was used to run off of retail psychology. What is going to transpire in the end? And so, for the most part, that is how it unfolded time and time again. However, in this instance, the institutions are included in the image, whereas they were not included in the image previously. That is the point at which the excitement is palpable, and individuals are able to put out the case that, well, you know what? There is a definite possibility that this time may be different. And a lot of these things are beginning to come together, but I would like you to share your own opinions on the matter in the comments section. However, check this out. XRP exchange-traded funds have been experiencing a 13-day stretch of inflows, reaching a total of $900 million and outperforming the inflows of both Bitcoin and Ethereum exchange-traded funds. And I believe this is something that is largely disregarded. I completely agree with this individual's statement in which they assert that XRP is operating in the background during the period of time when the normies are asleep. I believe this to be true because I think that the normies are paying closer attention to the price retracement rather than simply continuing to pump. Let me ask you this. What if I were to tell you that at the time when the price was behaving in this way, this is when everyone was the biggest moon boy. Every single person was the greatest moon boy in this place. The term moon boy refers to just a small number of persons. Do you understand what I'm saying? And according to my perspective, the actual moon lads were exactly here, right here in this range. As a result, it provides you with a somewhat greater comprehension of retail psychology, while also noting that XRP is holding up very well, remaining in the range of 0.50. In addition, when it comes to the sentiment, we are currently sitting at the lowest levels we have witnessed since the month of October, arguably speaking. Therefore, once more, I would like you to leave your opinions in the comments section, but take a look at what Saylor has to say. As you are aware, Michael Taylor has just outlined the speed at which Wall Street is entering the world of Bitcoin. As it was said by Michael Taylor at the Binance Blockchain Week, it was formerly believed that the world's largest banks would not begin to adopt Bitcoin for another 4 to 8 years. However, this is now taking place at the current moment. Just within the span of a single year, financial institutions such as Bank of New York Mellon, PNC, Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Vanguard, and others have all shifted their stance on cryptocurrency from being dubious to being supportive. And it is not only the atmosphere. In the coming year, Bitcoin will be held in custody by Schwab, and credit will be offered against cryptocurrency. The company known as Citi is getting ready to participate in a competition with the 10 largest banks in the United States. According to Saylor, 8 people are now participating